I was watching a YouTube video of Richie Hawtin talking about how he set up his last tour that he did a couple of years ago, and it was actually on the Apple campus, and he was doing this very in-depth talk about how he's got his gear set up and how it interacts with his visuals. And from an MD perspective, I found it really fascinating because I was like, oh man, that's really like super high level, and he's really dialed with his stuff. And he kept on looking at this mixer that he had. And I was like, what's that mixer? That's super cool. And he didn't once mention that it was basically his own product, which I thought was kind of cool. But it's basically an Allen and Heath DJ mixer that has been pimped a little bit. And effectively, it's just a stereo mixer with some EQs and filters on it. And I've got one on one side of the studio, which has got a bunch of synths plugged into it. And I've got kind of my own like digital duplicate of it on the other side of the studio, which is this MIDI controller here that controls a Ableton template that is basically an Ableton facsimile of what the DJ mixer does. So I have like 6 synths plugged into it, but then it all comes out of a stereo pair of Ableton, which then goes into Logic, and Logic is my tape machine, basically.
Wow. So are you not doing the whole RME Q-Mix thing anymore?
I'm doing that as well.
Okay, we'll get to that.
I'm getting to that. So I've basically got like all the stuff on this side of the room goes through one mixer, all the stuff on this side of the room goes through one mixer. And then they both end up in like my Logic tape machine in the middle. So if I want to record something, I start playing it and it's already going through the mixer, and then I've basically got 2 inputs in Logic, and that's it.
Amazing.
And it will either be from that mixer or this mixer. It's actually slightly more elaborate than that because I've got a couple of effects returns as well, but they're groups tracks, whatever. And so I've gone from this place of having like a Logic template that's like 32 tracks deep to having a Logic template that's 2 groups of 3 tracks each deep. Wow. And it's just so much more fun and easier and great. So within that, sometimes if you really want to record 2 things separately and they're both going through the same stereo out, it's like, bummer. So they're still all on their individual outs. And the thing that you're referring to that I still use literally on a daily basis is I've got an RME audio card, which I absolutely love. I think RME are just killer. Super stable, sound really good, brilliant software. So the mixer software, which is like the equivalent of the Universal Audio console, is this fabulously like tiny font Germanic mixer thing that you look at it and you're just like, oh dude, what is going on there? But the fabulous thing about it is you can MIDI map the whole thing. And so probably 3 or 4 years ago now, I set up a bunch of macros in Keyboard Maestro, and Keyboard Maestro is an app that you can run on your computer all the time, and you can basically use it to make macros. So you can you can set it up so that Apple Shift F1 will go and do this long list of commands of things that you do on a regular basis. But in the case of the RME mixer, those commands can be MIDI CCs with values. So basically the RME mixer behaves like a patch bay. Little caveat about patch bays, because patch bays are brilliant, and I used to own one. And then at some point I was just like, why do I have a patch bay? It's a total pain in the ass. And like the one time where your patch bay doesn't work properly or scratches, it's like this most cataclysmic event. And I'm like, I need to get rid of the patch bay. So the RME mixer is basically my patch bay because it lets you route any input to any output, but also mix any input to any output at any level, which is great if you've got a bunch of synths, because this synth might have a level up here, but this one's down here, but you want to be able to send them both to the same delay effect. And if you had a patch bay, you'd have to change the input on your effect to cater for the output of the synth. But because you're effectively going through a mixer, you just do this, so your input to the delay is always the same. So you can kind of gain match everything in a nice way. And using that Keyboard Maestro macro thing, it means that I've got I don't know, let me do this. So the top of my keyboard has got this little piece of paper. I don't know if you can see that along there.
Amazing.
Which has got all of my various inputs from DJ mixers and individual synths. and the routings for each. So, for example, if I want to send my Juno to the ISA channel strip and then to the Eventide space and the El Capistan, I press Apple Shift F6 and it happens. And then the outputs of those will be those 3 group tracks that I've got in Logic, which are always there. So you literally just go doof, record, and that is you're ready to go.
So that switches out like either of your mixer setups for a direct setup as well. So you kind of can switch between.
Yeah. Totally.
Are people understanding this? I'm waiting for the chat to explode if people would like the mind blown emojis. Oh, we have got one mind blown emoji in there. Thank you, MDA. This is pretty deep stuff.
I mean, it's one of these like slightly kind of ridiculous things because. Yeah, I'm super lucky that I've got 20 years worth of synths and stuff that I've collected over the years, and so you end up in this situation where you've got a lot of stuff to plug in. But actually, even when I've where I before last year, I used to travel around quite a bit, and I'd basically take 2 suitcases that had like a modular synth and my Army sound card and a drum machine and a couple of guitar pedals, and even within that tiny setup. Having this routing ability, I found just saved me such a huge amount of time, because then like the smaller the setup is, the more options for like interesting backwards routing you can have. So it's like, oh, do I want to go through the delay first, or do I want to go through the reverb first? And you can set up all of these different macros, and just go doof, and then you're like, oh, actually that doesn't sound great. So you go doof, oh, that one sounds good, and that that takes like a second, as opposed to I've got to unplug these 5 cables. Gain match everything, plug in these 5 cables, find the input channels to record it onto, hit record, decide that I don't like it, do something, and I've found I guess it's been set up like this for 3 or 4 years, and I literally use it on a daily basis, and just can't really imagine not having that set up now. Mm-hmm. It's just, I totally love it. It lets you set up stuff super quick, try out things super quick, and move on to the next thing if it's not working. And one of the things that I find with I'm particularly with film work actually, is that there's just never enough time, and so you don't really get the luxury of the entire day to experiment with this texture or that texture. It's just like, okay, I need to try 5 things, and one of them's going to be great and is going to be the thing that works. But in order to get through those things quickly, you need to have your studio dialed in such a way that you're not spending like half an hour of those 40 minutes plugging stuff in and moving stuff around. So yeah, I love the RME stuff for that point of view, because you can MIDI map the whole thing, and it's a total game changer for me.